All right, so listen up. Republicans are going to try, or better said, they are trying to steal that Kentucky gubernatorial election that they lost, which I told you about yesterday. By the way, big interest in my story yesterday about the big wins by Democrats on Tuesday evening in a bunch of different state and local elections. Usually the stories where I talk about local and state elections and the implications, they just don't do that well. But I got dozens of emails from yesterday's, close to 100,000 views on YouTube in just like the first 12 hours. So this is a good sign that people are engaged with the races that are going on. So one of those races was the Kentucky gubernatorial race. In Kentucky, very red state, which Donald Trump won by 30 points over Hillary Clinton in 2016, had a Trump-loving governor gubernatorial candidate named Matt Bevin. A major Democratic victory has taken place with Democratic challenger Andy Beshear, the attorney general of the state, knocking out the incumbent Republican governor. Now, this is Kentucky. It's not a blue state. It's not a purple state. And officially at this point in time, it is a blue victory in a very red state by 5,189 votes for Andy Beshear. The Republicans are going to fight to the end to steal the election. And here's how they're going to do it. First of all, as a mere formality, the governor has refused to concede. Now, again, as I've said before, concessions don't really do anything, but later on, it can be pointed to try to build the case that they from the beginning didn't believe that they had actually lost. Okay, because of the small margin, they are going to demand that the entire state be recanvassed, as it's called, because of concerns that they are generally talking about regarding voting irregularities. Now, the thing is, they're not telling us what those irregularities are. They say, quote, "We want the people of Kentucky to have absolute confidence that their votes were counted as they should have been counted." But there's no indication about why someone would suspect that their vote was not counted. And there's also no specific claims or evidence that have been presented that anyone's votes were not counted, particularly in a way that would have hurt the Democratic candidate or helped the Democratic candidate as counted, but would help the Republican candidate if they had been counted the correct way. But the whole point of all of this is not even to get the recanvassing to change the results, because it is very unlikely that recanvassing would flip 5,189 votes, which is the margin of victory. So what's the real point here? The point is they want to escalate the entire process to the state legislature, which is controlled by Republicans, because Section 90 of the Kentucky Constitution says, quote, "Contested elections for governor and lieutenant governor shall be determined by both houses of the General Assembly according to such regulations as may be established by the law." So understand that all of this is premised on supposed voting irregularities, which were not reported on Election Day, and which the Republicans refuse to actually give us any examples of. Bernie is furious, saying, quote, "In a democracy, we cannot allow politicians to just overrule election results. The will of the voters must be respected." Now, this is a very long shot, especially since even if the state legislature does get to decide, they still need to establish some fixed process for how it's all going to be carried out. It's not just they pick the winner and they pick the Republican, but it is still a last-ditch effort, and they are extraordinarily desperate. And the most likely way, I'm guessing, that they would try to make some kind of progress is to make some kind of argument about the Libertarian candidate supposedly getting 2% of the vote, and that's larger than the margin of victory for the Democrat. And they will probably try to say there were votes credited to the Libertarian that were meant for the Republican or whatever. I mean, none of this stuff makes any sense. I'm just thinking ahead to what they're most likely to do. If it sounds absurd and ridiculous to you, it's because it is absurd and ridiculous, but they don't care. The means always justify the ends if it keeps a Democrat out of office, even if the Democrat won. So we're going to be watching this one very closely. There's a lot of coverage about this one on Common Dreams, Daily Kos, and a lot of other activist lefty websites. It's on Bernie Sanders' radar. So hopefully it will not lend itself to a situation where Republicans can actually pull this off. But they are furious. They see what Tuesday night's election results potentially mean for them in 2020. They see what it means to start losing state houses and governors' mansions in red states across the country. Virginia turned totally blue. There were interesting results in some parts of Pennsylvania that are traditionally red that I did not get to on Tuesday night, which a lot of people emailed me about and are important, and we hopefully will get a chance to talk about at some point. So they see what is going on. Whether they attribute it to being damaged by Trump or not, it depends on which Republicans you talk to. Some of them do, some of them don't. But this is potentially going to be a bloodbath in 2020. But I don't want a single one of you to hear me say that and believe that now you can rest on your laurels and not have to work our asses off for 2020. We could take the Senate back. It's an uphill battle, but I outlined how it could happen. But it's only if we really work in all of those important states where there are elections that could go from Republican to Democrat. We could knock out Donald Trump, but it's going to come down to actually getting out the vote in those key battleground states that I told you about yesterday. It could look really good, or it could be another 4 years of a Republican Senate and Donald Trump in the White House. That's a real possibility if we don't actually do what we need to do.